Hello, world.
Hi. Um, Firstly, an apologies over an apologies, an apology over our continuing and ongoing sound issues that have been getting worse and worse. Our old microphone was not working, and it finally
He
died.
dropped it like the second I bought it.
But it worked. It worked, and then it finally just crapped out last week, and we didn't find out until we loaded the video, and you couldn't hear it. So, thank you to our friend Matt Ostrowski, who has a fair amount of like home studio stuff, and he had this sitting in a box in the closet. He'd never used it. It is a Shure MV51, and it's a great diaphragm mic, and it works beautifully, and the program is easy to use, and so I think we've got a winner. We've already done some testing, so, and I will also check the video before we go nuts.
Yeah, we don't edit. But having the microphone means you'll probably hear children and stomping more. Sorry.
Because it's pretty sensitive.
Yes. And he was testing it before next to Kraken, who was purring. Picked her up very well.
Mm-hmm. It worked great.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's launch into it. Oh, wait. Oh, well, I would ask you what watch you're wearing, but I know what watch you're
Oh,
wearing.
shoot. Sorry. Because I was running around this morning because it was bring school supplies to school with Sadie, and then I went to Target because I did. And I'm wearing my sub. I grabbed that when I'm not thinking.
I'm wearing one of Sabrina's favorite watches of mine. I've nearly sold this like 4 different times, and she won't ever let me
I
sell
want to
it.
paint the house those colors.
What, the blue and the yellow?
Yeah, with white trim. Like have the house blue, the door yellow, and white trim.
It's a really nice example of this model. With my patented taper H-link that I put on. Stellax. I should wear this watch more often.
Okay, now we will jump into it. Hold on, yawning. Dog woke us up too early, or was it Sebastian?
Yeah, dog tongue in my ear. 6:03 in the morning.
Okay.
Glorph.
From Lucky Gold Panda. Question for next mail call. I recently learned that a Seiko of mine is actually a fake. Uh-oh. Feeling very jaded about vintage watches at the moment, and so I ended up buying a modern diver, a SBBN 015. My question is, how ridiculous would it be to stock up on parts or to buy beat-up examples and pulling the battery in order to save the parts for something down the line? Is this something you would advise for an enthusiast to do, or should I save my money and trust someone down the line who could always work on it?
I can't turn the camera and show you the workbench, but I'm looking at my parts, my project stores. I don't know. I must have a couple thousand watches in there. So yeah, it's a great idea. Buy every junk watch you can get your hands on, all of them.
And then eventually you will make one watch.
Eventually, and then sometime after that, you'll die, and your loved ones will tip you into a ditch, like it's going to happen to me, and then they'll take all the watches and they'll take turns throwing them at birds.
Wow. That's special.
Well, either that or you're going to stuff me and put me on the couch.
He's been saying that people are going to stuff him and put him on the couch before we even got together. I think it's just this dream he has.
Well, no, it's from The Simpsons.
It is?
Yeah, absolutely. Homer and Marge were talking about what Marge was going to do after Homer died, and she said, "Oh, Homer, I would never get married after you died," and he said, "Damn straight, I'm going to be stuffed and mounted on the couch as a permanent reminder of our love." Or a permanent reminder of our marriage vows. I don't remember.
Okay. From Nemorino ESO. Nice. Those plastic gears look so cheap, though. I don't know what he's talking about.
It was on a 6309 video, I believe. Yeah, Seiko. He's talking about in the calendar area of 6000 series, the intermediate wheel for the date driving wheel and the date driving wheel itself. The top portions. Seiko, they used to be all metal, like the early 6139s and the 6105s, the early ones they made were all metal. But then Seiko decided, it was probably, I'm sure it was knowing Seiko, it was probably a cost-saving issue of a few pennies. Their official rationale for using plastic is that it is self-lubricating. They went so far in the 6309s to make the entire date driving assembly plastic, and like the 6105s and 6106s and everything, even the later ones, the main gear for the date driving wheel itself was still metal. By the time they got to the 6309, as you saw, it had plastic. And those, while it's self-lubricating, something I noticed, especially with like the 7549 versions of the 6309, is the inner portion, the inner circumference of that, which sits around its sort of flat post that it's screwed onto, they'll sort of, I don't know, they wear, it's odd. I think material gets pulled out as it turns, and the holes actually get too tight. And those lower plastic wheels start to bind up. I often find I have to use a very special Dremel tool a bit, but I use it by hand to open up those holes a little bit so that the wheel will turn freely again. Sometimes I snap it on there and it won't turn at all. So, I mean, generally they're okay, unless you have something like in that watch where it stops the date wheel completely, and then those teeth on those plastic ears will just shred. Yeah, it looks cheap, but, you know, generally it works.
Sorry, I'm tired. I wasn't listening.
You didn't get a tongue in your ear, unfortunately. It's 6:03 in the morning. At least not my tongue anymore. Or the dog's tongue. What?
You. From Troy Nasello, this question's on the Mac V SOG 758030 video. I was wondering, was it in working condition? Did it tick? Did it need servicing? Lube dried up from just age? Do the seals dry rot from just sitting in the box for nearly 50 years?
This was on a video for a new old stock, never worn, never purchased, Seiko 7005-8030 Mac V SOG. It's the rarest of them, with the black dial, 7005 dress watch with the black dial and the Arabic numbers. Yes, it ran. It takes an extraordinary amount of abuse to make a vintage Seiko watch not run. Something that has never been worn or anything else like that, it's going to be fine. Seiko used they use synthetic lubricants even then, which means they'll just outgas and go away. They don't turn into shellac. So yeah, absolutely it ticked. The seals are made of nitrile, and they get hard because they oxidize. But they use nitrile because it has a greater temperature range for flexibility. It absolutely needed service because even though physically it was in great condition, perfect condition, it had no lubrication whatsoever. But I did not service it. I sold it unserviced to the gentleman who put it into a safe, and it is in the dark. But yeah, no, it was fine. It ticked perfectly, and it was not wearable, but it was damn near new. But yes, it needed service. Don't worry.
My app was telling me to drink water.
Do you want me to get you some?
No, I left it upstairs. I have to drink a lot of water.
My thing has fresh water in it. Do you want it? What?
I don't share water with people. I don't share drinks with people. That's gross. I don't care if I have to kiss you.
You don't have to do anything. I just work here.
From S Maya 02. Hi, love the Friday videos. Question for mail call. What could be the reason for a 78387270 be eating up batteries like crazy? Something like a new battery every 2 or 3 weeks. Thanks for any help. Best regards from Brazil.
You've got a major problem with your circuit. You would need to basically pull the circuit and the coils, and you need to test. Something is pulling and draining power. That's a short. When you have that much power going on, 2 to 3 weeks for a battery, that's nuts. They're supposed to be good for like 4 years. So yeah, something is actively draining the battery. You have a short somewhere inside. It's not that the watch is, needs a service necessarily, physical service. A 7A, when it needs service, one or more of the registers will simply stop working, or it'll start hanging up. But the battery will still last forever and ever and ever. You've got a circuit problem, some kind of a short.
From Raz Van Radu, question for next week. What can you tell us about the Seiko Thermic? Just came across this movement. Did you ever have one on your bench? Cheers.
I know of them. I've never seen one personally. It is it's pretty wacky technology. The idea being that one, and they're still working on it. Not Seiko, but people in the world generally are working on pulling power from getting basically green power from this kind of thing. What you do is you have a coefficient of two metals, and the difference in the sort of the voltage that they can carry is proportionate to the temperature of the two different metals. So if you have one that's cooler and one that's hotter, you can generate power through them. And what Seiko did, actually, one other company did first. Gosh, was it? No, it was Bulova. Bulova. It was one of the last things they did before they went under. They had I think it was called Thermitron, and it was the same idea. But Bulova was dying at the time, and they were trying to be cutting edge, and they pushed the watch to market too soon, and it was untested and untried, and it still was buggy, and it was thousands of dollars, and it basically helped put them under. Seiko did the same thing in the '90s, and I'll insert a picture of the Thermic. They're cool. They came out in the '90s. They were they were very cool, very pretty, but they were super expensive. They were like 3 grand, I think, something when they came out. But the idea being is that this physicist came up with this system where basically you wear the watch and the heat from your wrist with the not dialectic, that's the wrong word, but the two different metals and the different temperatures would generate a current.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. They were really expensive though, and I think that they discontinued it because they were really expensive, and they also, if you were supposed to be able to charge the thing up like any of other Seiko's kinetic kind of stuff with its rechargeable cells, and that in theory would be good for 9 months or 6 months or whatever. But their rechargeable cell technology has always seemed to be buggy to me, and so they were having situations where they having to take them back and work on them, and they didn't make them very long. The movement is a 6C movement. I don't know. They're wacky. They're cool. You saw from the picture. They're neat looking. I've never seen one personally. I have no idea that I ever will. I don't know what they sell for. I don't know who has them. They weren't made for very long. Almost no one bought them. But they were cool looking, and it's a very neat technology. I would hope that going forward, that would be something they might or someone might revisit because it's a neat idea.
I have a cat on me.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm doing. I'm petting the cat. Sam D. From what I've seen on Instagram, the Bruce Lee looks to be a JDM version of the 6012 with the Sports 5 logo on it.
And that's great information, which means that the one I have on Klein Vintage Watch may or may not be correct. But I dug through all of my crap, those thousands of watches that I've got, and I found this. It has no hands, but this is a 6011, so 6139 6011 with an A movement. It doesn't have any hands, but it says it's the Speed Timer Sports Proof model, and that may be one. So I don't have the sweep hand to restore this. It had a very specific sweep hand. It would have been the 2-part hand, but in the tomato red, which I mean, I've got one, but it's been stripped of paint, and I could, in theory, bring this one back. It's got some damage to the dial, and it's got a blue chapter ring, not a black one. I don't know. Sometimes I look at a watch that's this far down, and I almost think it's not worth bringing back. Plus, also, I don't have the right bracelet for it. But
is anything right? You keep talking about everything that's wrong.
Well, it's the right dial. The case isn't bad. It needs to be reloomed. If I had the correct sweep hand, yeah. I think the other thing too, this one has a Roman English day wheel, but I would almost expect this to have, if it was truly JDM, it would have kanji English. Though I did once, a long time ago, see a really early one in perfect condition, and it had Chinese English.
Really?
Uh-huh. Huh. Long time ago, though. So anyway, anybody who wants to do any more research, get more information, I really want to know what his watch was.
And we never told them that I'm going to get a new watch. My Brad Pitt watch.
Oh yeah, some of you I'm sure may know, some of you may not know, is that Brad Pitt, who was in this latest Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, wore an early '70s Citizen gold-plated bullhead. Here's a still from a promotional shot from the movie showing the watch. So here it is. The dial printing's all there. Dial surface is a little rough. I'm not sure how that's going to clean up, but it was the orange hands that really did it for me. So I've got a new bezel incoming. This one has some corrosion damage. You can actually see it all the way underneath the glass. But the plating's actually not bad. I mean, it's worn, but it's not really blown through in a lot of places. It is interesting that all the pictures so far that I've seen of people saying, hey, this is the Brad Pitt, they all seem to have white day and date wheels, whereas the one picture that shows the watch from the movie, because I haven't seen the movie, shows black. So it should look like this. Also, the one in the movie seems to have silver buttons, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, that's what it looks like. There it is, the Brad Pitt Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I got one. As soon as somebody told me that, and as soon as that information came across,
because somebody likes movie watches.
She does like movie watches. So I will insert a picture here of the watch that we got.
And there's a cat.
And there's a cat. We did get it. It's arrived. The watch came from the UK, which kind of breaks one of my rules. But it's not a model that anybody would ever have thought about or have wanted to fake. And I looked at it and I'm like, this thing, it's got potential, because the orange chronograph hands were original and they were unfaded. The loom is black. What are you going to do? It showed up. It's here. It's complete. It's intact. I couldn't get it to do anything. Utterly dead. And yesterday, I was kind of in between stuff. And so for fun, I actually went and pulled the loom and I looked at it. And it's all the movement plates are like this, because one of the screws is missing and all the other screws are loose. So the whole thing is like, it's like a deck of cards with watch parts between them. So, but I'm gonna do a whole restoration video on that particular Citizen.
I want that one before my 6105. I already told him.
Yep. Aren't you so cute?
He's talking to the cat, not me. What?
You should see how she's sleeping.
Yeah, she got drool on my pants and now she's sleeping on it. From Lane Edwards, hey guys, thanks again for giving us your time. Fun question for you too. Would you mind talking about other lesser known cool Seikos? I'm only asking because I'm sure you have some of them lying around. Example, your mono pusher chronograph. The reason I'm asking is it will save more vintage Seikos. P.S. You should put the glue gun on the ledge behind you so we all know where it is at all times.
It got left on the deck in the rain.
Yep.
There's a lot of crazy wild.
I don't know why I gave that to you.
I don't either. There's a lot of crazy wild vintage Seikos out there that a lot of people don't know about. Seiko loves generating all kinds of different models. There's a ton of them out there. I will dig through and we'll see if I can show off some unusual Seikos. I think it would probably be helpful if they were unusual and relatively easy to get a hold of. There's an Instagram user, Lil Seikos, Lil Seikos. And he's a pretty prominent collector of lesser known models. He likes mid-size Seiko models, and he's also a big fan of some of the older quartz models. He posted a big thing about a 17920 CD0 on Instagram and also on Reddit the other day, and he called it his space watch. And it's really cool. It's a kind of watch style that I really like. It's one of the only dress watch styles I really like. It's sort of a TV dial. It's a big square dial like this with an integrated tapered bracelet. And I think it's really cool. It appears that it might have been Japanese only. I'm not sure. But it's a really neat thing. Like it's got a cool handset that is reminiscent of the spacewalk. It has that sweep hand is that same thing. It's an unusual handset and it's a cool looking watch. And I'm going to start looking for one. They came in a blue and a black. And that again is 1792. OCD0. I think it's SBMC023.
I don't know, don't look at me about it.
I don't know. I'll need to look it up, but those are really, really cool, and I've actually started looking for one. I think I love those square TV dial watches with the integrated taper bracelets. They're cool.
Oh, God.
Hi, Cricklebot.
I need a nap. From Julie Hill, I run all my mechanical watches once a month and give them a good charge in the barrel, then rest them up again. I don't use watch finders.
I think that's all wonderful. That's all great. Keeps things moving just a little bit and keeps things going, and then the watches sleep. I fully endorse your process.
John, the computer doctor. Hi, Sabrina and Spencer. Just done my first Seiko service on a 6309-8480. It needed a new escape wheel plus a mainspring and glass. All went well, and it currently runs at -4 seconds a day, which is amazing. My only weak point in servicing is the lubrication. So do you have any hints and tips on how I can improve my technique? And yes, we use fairy liquid in the UK to wash our dishes, etc. That's so cute.
That's what they call it. It's pink.
But it sounds so sweet.
Mainsprings. You know, something I've been thinking about doing. Seikos, when they're being serviced, they have the Seiko servicing guides does not specify replacing mainsprings unless the mainsprings fail a specific power test. Now, with Swiss watches like Omega and stuff like that, the process is that you always replace the mainspring during servicing. So, as a side effect of this, you can get Rolex and Omega mainsprings. They're not expensive and they're available everywhere. Seiko mainsprings, they're hard to find. One of the projects I'm trying to do now is actually there's a whole old market that still exists for basically generic mainsprings. They're the right dimensions and size and stiffness and length. And something I've considered doing was actually starting to replace mainsprings, whether they fail their Seiko test or not. I did a thing recently where I had serviced one watch, and it got and it was fine numbers. And then I actually went and replaced the mainspring. It's a long story. For an unrelated reason, I needed to replace the mainspring so that we had a good slipping bridle on it. And I was amazed because I had good numbers before, and then I replaced the mainspring, and so surprisingly, gosh, I got better amplitude with a new mainspring. Even though I actually thought with the difference in the slipping bridle, I would have gotten lower amplitude. No, I got higher amplitude. So I'm often wondering, since I just sort of reflexively don't replace these mainsprings because they almost all pass Seiko's little test, that maybe that's a major issue. So mainsprings, that's kind of a big deal. And I'm going to be looking more at that going forward. As for lubrication, I guess you'd have to tell me what challenges you're facing, like getting the right amount of lubricant on your cap jewels, where to put your lubricant. The Seiko servicing guide is great. If you don't have the Seiko servicing guide, you should look for one on eBay and grab it. Why don't you write to me and ask me, specifically tell me what problems you're having or what you'd like to improve on, and maybe we can work together and come to something better for you, and hopefully I will give you good information.
From Super Cruise. Spencer, Sabrina, I appreciate you both, and thank you for taking the time to share your lives and the Seiko watch hobby with us enthusiasts. Question for next week. I have an early 6139-6019 taken in trade for some work I am performing for a customer on a 6138 UFO. The 6139 dates to December 69. The movement is an early 6139A movement. The one thing I think is odd is the pillar wheel appears blue in color. At first I thought this was an aftermarket part, but the part appears to be machined in steel and blued like gun steel. The watch appears original and untouched. Did Seiko make certain components like pillar wheels on the early 6139 in blued steel? Curious to hear your comments.
Yes, they did. And I'm going to insert a picture of that right here so people know the part we're talking about. This is a standard column wheel right here. That's what they look like normally. Just imagine that this was, instead of being silver like this, it's in fact a dark blue. I was going to insert a photograph to show the blued column wheel about this question, and I just, because I don't have any sense of, sometimes I get pulled off on tasks that aren't important, and so I just went through every single 6139 and 6138 I have, and every spare movement and every spare bridge to find one of those blued column wheels. I don't have one. Tells you how rare they are. I'm sorry, I was really hoping to be able to show you one, and I just don't have one. Sorry about that. Like you, a long time ago, I remember the first time I got in a really early 6139, and I popped it open, and I was like, what? The pillar wheel's blued. What's up with that? And I have seen them from time to time. Rarely. I've seen 6139 and 6138s with it. Rarely early. I cannot for the life of me figure out why they would have done gun bluing on it, unless it's not gun bluing, unless it was actually surface hardening. If it's heat bluing. And they might have done that because they were concerned about wear issues on that part, seeing as that, you know, it has a lot of, all the levers are coming in and going out with that. And that is my theory. And then maybe somebody, you know, at Seiko, a bean counter said, well, we can save blank number of pennies or whatever the equivalent in Japan is if we don't take the time to heat treat this one particular part because it's overkill. I do see them. I only see them early. And that's my theory, is that it just coincidentally looks like gun bluing because it's heat bluing, as a result of basically sort of case hardening this particular part. That's only a theory. That's all I can think of, because it reminds me of, you know, I used to own a lot of like vintage military guns, old stuff, a lot of things I inherited from my dad. And those things, they used a lot of that kind of heat treated bluing, like salt bluing is what they used to do. But that's what it reminded me of. That's why I immediately thought about gun bluing, but I don't think it is gun bluing. I don't know, but I've never had an answer about it.
Okay, I don't know what he's talking about.
Neither do I.
Aaron Costello, great little watches. I have two.
He's talking about the mid-size 6'4", 3, whatever the heck it is, like the mid-size. I had a video about one of these orange dress watches. They're sort of, people call them sort of a boy's size or a mid-size quartz watch. They're like Japan only, but they have great movements.
You may know this already, but the 64313233 was used in many entirely unremarkable dress watches in the early 80s. The movements look nearly identical to the 6458. The dress watches sell for pennies, so it might be worth buying one for a few bucks to see what interchanges. If I had to guess, I'd say 6458 is simply a higher torque version of the 6432.
I'm entirely sure that you're probably correct. The 64 family, I'm sure that they're all the same. They're great quality movements. They're really nice. They're all metal. They're equipped with a full variable trimmer. They're really, really nice movements. I mean, like they're light years better than the 7Cs that came out at the same time. They're jeweled. They're all metal. They have a trimmer, and it's just one of these things where Seiko just knocked it out of the park. But because I don't think they were really exported a whole lot, people don't know about them. And of course, with the trend for gigantic watches, that's been the case for the last 20 years. People don't think about the mid-size divers because very few people wear them. Now, everything seems to be 40 millimeters and below for a lot of the newer watches, the sweet spot for people. So people should hopefully start thinking about them because they're cool. Great movements. And thank you for that tip.
From Randy Novick. After watching so many of these service videos, I'm almost afraid to send you any of my old Seikos for service because of the heap of derisions. Is that how you pronounce it?
What, derision?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd likely be submitting myself to for the oddball prior servicing and parts selection they've probably had, and I never knew about it. I mean, yeah, life's filled with opportunities to correct old wrongs, but think of the shame.
Well, what shame? What shame? Okay, let's say I go...
Oh, no, he feels stuff about this.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, there is no shame. She and I may imagine we go for a drive up north, and we're driving through Wellington, and some old guy has got his barn open, and there's his 1968 fastback Mustang, and I pull off to talk to him, and he says it used to belong to his brother or something else like this, and we buy it for $400 and get it home, and it has all kinds of horrible aftermarket parts in it. I wouldn't have any shame about that. whatsoever. It's just one of those things. You didn't do it. Nobody knows until we rip them apart and see them. It's no big deal, but it's nice because you're healing the watch. We're combing out the tangles. We're pushing out the bad things and making it all better. It's so pleasurable. By the way, if anybody does have a '68 fastback Mustang for $400, please let me know.
I saw the Thunderbird we always see.
Oh, really?
Driving around, yeah. What?
Wait, the black convertible?
Uh-huh.
Somebody's got a 58. No, I'm sorry. It's a 59 Thunderbird black convertible with white interior, black exterior in like damn near showroom condition. And they drive it around sometimes on nice days. And, oh, it's so beautiful. What I wouldn't give, like a 64 Thunderbird I'd love to have. Or a 66 Thunderbird also would be really, really cool. So
I can deal with watches because they're small.
Like there's a guy selling an MGB in town, a really nice one, and it's not too much money. There's another dude down in Denver who's got an MGB GT, a 67, a nice one. I just have to wait till Sebastian's older and then we'll buy something, but everything's so expensive now.
Mm-hmm. From Seiko, can't wait to see the Cutie 99 rebuild. Question, looking at the new Seiko 5s, to me, I am not a believer that they are replacing the SKX line, different specs. What are your thoughts on the R movement?
I started pulling apart the QT99. The problem appears to be literally that light emitting unit. If you can, it's easy. You just pull the top off that thing. It has two hand screws off the back knobs, and then the whole top comes off, and it's just a series of blade circuits in there, big ones. The thing was made in 1984, by the way, February 1984. I need to remove that. There's a blade right behind that display panel, and there's that little red light. That little red light is like a little like teeny tiny red plastic light thing with two leads coming off the circuit board, and it's flashing, but it's weak. And I don't know whether it's a circuit problem or it's a bulb problem. So I need to find out what bulb that is and then see if I just use soldering iron and get that one old bulb out and put it back in, see if it's okay. The problem is I can't find any specs on that thing. There's no test manual. There's no servicing guide for it, nothing. And I'm not an electronics guy, so that makes it a little tougher. You know, what are you going to do? What was the next thing he asked?
Oh, he was asking about R movement?
Oh, you mean like the 4 Rs? Clarify what you mean, and then we can talk about it, because 4R and 6R, that must be what you mean. They're okay. I mean, if they're serviced properly and lubricated correctly, they're great. The problem I've had with them is that there appear to be consistent QC issues with the lubrication on them, and that if that's wrong, then they're all jacked up. That's where the problem seems to be. But once they're serviced, they're fine.
That's it.
That's it?
Mm-hmm. What?
Nothing. So, a few watches that are going to be potentially up for sale. We had somebody send in a pretty neat, something I've never seen before. It's pretty amazing. This is a professional, military issued Bulova. God, it's so beautiful. Look at this thing. This is a professional diver's watch. Look at the bubble on that thing. These apparently are quite rare. But the gentleman who he's older and he's retiring and he wants to sell off some of his stuff. So he has this, which he never wore, and it's got an ETA movement in it. It's a Benris. I'm sorry, Benris. That's right. It's a Benris. This is a Benris, original Benris dive watch. And then there's Bill Yao Mark II has the new version of it. These are both going to be for sale. And he has another Bill Yao design watch that is also going to be for sale. But I'm going to do a review on this piece because this is super cool. Like, I just love like real pro diver watches, and like that's what this is, and it's really neat. That's really cool. Parkerized case, one piece, front loading, high beat, automatic hand winding, hacking. It's just bidirectional, acrylic insert on the thing. That's just obscenely cool. But this ain't bad. This got an NH15 in it, and that's pretty decent. Running along pretty well. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I do like the case shape. She hates the ladder handset though. She doesn't like it.
Nope. Sorry.
No ladder handset.
Your cat wouldn't like it either.
Cats like ladders.
It's true. Fine, I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, that's it, folks. Hopefully you were able to hear this a little better, and I don't know. That's really about it.
I want to take a nap.
What?
I want to take a nap.
Well, if you can convince them to be quiet, then sure.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully you all can hear it. And thank you again, Matt Ostrowski. And anybody got any more information about the Bruce Lees, let us know. Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.